You're listening to Head Voice, bringing you inside the minds of singers and sound creators who are redefining what it means to make music with the voice. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Evan, and this week we're super happy to be talking to Lisa Forkish, an educator, arranger, performer, and songwriter who founded 5-time national ICHSA champion Vocal Rush and makes up 1/5 of vocal supergroup HIVE.
We covered a lot in this episode, starting from her experience competing in ICCA with UO's Divisi, which ultimately inspired the Pitch Perfect book, her journey working at the Oakland School of the Arts, including building an a cappella program from the ground up, all the way through her work with WACA and her solo ventures and adventures with HIVE. Stick around.
Like a dork.
Okay, cool. That's amazing. All right. Hello, everybody. We are here this week with Lisa Forkish. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us this week.
Oh, thanks for having me.
We did the Raise Your Voice series last year and did that a while ago. I was just listening to that. That was November 2017, so it's been a minute.
Oh, wow.
That was a year ago.
Yeah.
It was over a year. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But in our first Raise Your Voice episode, which is the series we did with WACA, we had talked. You'd done like a brief intro, but we'd obviously love to like dive a little bit deeper into your upbringing. We were just talking about your bio on your Divisi page, which says that you were born on June 26, 1985. So maybe let's start there. Where was that?
The day you were born.
June 26, 1985. Oh my goodness. Well, I came into the world before the doctor even arrived. My mom went into labor and they called the doctor, and the like midwife who'd never delivered a baby had to deliver me and was like scared. And it was a whole thing. So I was ready to come into the world. That's the first thing to know about me. I was born in the Bay Area. And lived there, Bay Area, which is where I live now. But I took a little detour and moved to Eugene, Oregon when I was 6. My family moved up there, and so I kind of consider myself Oregonian and Californian, and
good combo.
And a little combo. I mean, I'm like just through and through West Coast. I lived in Boston for a while. Only time I've lived on the East Coast, and the whole time I was like, I'm on the wrong side of the country. I like felt it in my whole being. So grew up in Eugene, which is a really small town, but very arts centered for the size. A lot of music came through. I saw Bobby McFerrin at the local performing arts center when I was a kid, and I saw lots of musical theater productions. For a small town, like there was a lot of music and arts, and I was involved in musical theater camps and choirs, and actually the Oregon Bach Festival takes place in Eugene and is one of the most renowned Bach festivals in the world, and people travel from all over to play in the orchestra and sing in the choir. And fun little fact about that is that I was the youngest member to ever be admitted to the Bach Festival chorus, the professional chorus, back when I was singing classical. Back in those days. Yeah, so I studied classical and jazz voice, sang in my high school jazz choir at South Eugene High School, which, was pre-contemporary a cappella, taking over jazz programs in high school. But it was like a contemporary a cappella group would be, where it was like small and advanced and rigorous, and we traveled and we competed and we won a bunch of vocal jazz festivals, and that was kind of where I got the vocal music bug, singing in harmony. But I'd been writing songs already. I started writing songs when I was 11, and I taught myself how to play piano because I was like, I need an instrument to write on. My mom was a pianist, so from the time I started singing at 6 or 7, she would accompany me. But I started to get to a point where I was like, if my mom's busy, I'd be like, Mom, can you play for me? No, I'm doing this. I'm like, okay, well, I got to be able to play for myself. So that's part of why I started playing piano. Awesome. And and then the part of my story that I might have shared before is, where it all began in the a cappella world, which I thought was just going to be like a short little stint and ended up turning into a whole career. But is I was a senior in high school, and actually it was a singer from that summer Bach festival, the youth choral academy that I had done the previous summer. There was a singer who was currently attending the University of Oregon, and I was on campus because my partner at the time was auditioning for a college group, and I saw her, and she ran by and she said, "Are you auditioning for Divisi?" And I was like, "No, what's that?" I was just sitting in the lobby of the School of Music at the U of O. And she was like, "Oh, that's not why you're here." I was like, "No." And she was like, "You should audition. It's an a cappella group." I was like, "But I'm about to be a senior." It was like the spring of my junior year. She was like, "Well, try it. Why not?" So I went in and I was like, "I don't know. I didn't sign up. I don't have anything prepared. I'm just here. I happen to be in the lobby." It was like totally fate. It was totally fate.
Oh my gosh.
And they were like, "Can you sing the national anthem?" I was like, "Yeah." And I did. And I sang it in like my super low key. And they were like, "Ooh, so you can sing low, huh?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, we need some female basses. They're like, they had one man in the group who's the beatboxer. They were 8 ladies in a bow tie. That was the original name for Divisi. And they decided that they wanted to kick out the bow tie. And they had seen actually the Golden Overtones from UC Berkeley performed the year before. This is Evan Holland's story that I'm telling right now. She had seen them. She was the founder of the group, and she had been like, "Oh, they have girl beatboxers. Girls can beatbox." Like it hadn't occurred to them yet because they don't have what we have now, which is, a lot more representation around gender and POC and everything. So I sang the national anthem. They asked me to be in the group. I said, "Well, I'm going to be a senior in high school." And they said, "Well, if you take a class at the U of O, we could probably just fudge it, and just say like you're a student." So my senior year of high school, I took yoga and African dance on campus, and I sang in Divisi, and I applied to Berklee College of Music, which is where I wanted to go to pursue my dream of being a performing songwriter. And then that spring, we'd had this amazing year, and they asked me to be the music director, or I was nominated by the group to be the music director. And I was like, "That's a cool opportunity. I bet I could defer admission." So I deferred admission,
And the rest is history.
And the rest is history. I ended up deferring admission 2 years, and then I ended up staying in VC 4 years. I had to reapply to Berkeley. It was like a whole thing. I have almost 2 undergraduate degrees, and seven. It took me 7 years to get the one. But I was a women's and gender studies major at U of O while I sang with the VC, and then thought that it was all over. I went to Berkeley, and I was like, "Well, that was cute. That was a fun little a cappella thing."
Yeah.
But then I started teaching at OSA, and I was like, "Well, we need an a cappella group," and then the rest from there is pretty much history.
Well, before we get to OSA, because we definitely will. The Divisi that you're talking about is the Divisi on which the Pitch Perfect book and then movie were based for our listeners. Can you kind of, you're like the real life story. Can you kind of talk about the whole finals thing and the competing, because I feel like that particular group is like a kind of seminal in terms of a cappella competition and all these things. It's a hollowed group. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. It's so crazy. It's crazy to me still that people reference that, and that I'll meet people at events and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, finals 2005," and I'm like, wow. Like at the time, I don't think that we realized that we were groundbreaking. And I think part of it is like, now when I think about what we did, it's like not that big of a deal, it just doesn't feel that groundbreaking, but it was. I mean, I guess it really was for the times. So we were the only group, I think we were maybe the second or maybe third group to advance to ICCA finals that was all female. And so that was kind of a big thing. We had competed the 2 years prior, and we hadn't made it to finals. And so it was 2005. We made it to finals. We had this really killer set that included the, kind of iconic cover of "Yeah" by Usher, which I think was just what was unique at the time. Because most all female identified groups were doing music by female artists. It was just like really, you heard a lot of Cranberries and Indigo Girls and Sarah McLachlan. You know, that was the time for that. And we did Joni Mitchell and Annie Lennox in our set, so we touched on that. We did the iconic female artists, and then our closer was "Yeah" by Usher, and we had some really incredible choreography. I think that was part of what made it a really like memorable set. We had a dancer who was in the group who won outstanding choreography at every single competition, every single like regional and quarterfinal, the 3 years that she was in the group, or 4 years. So what was kind of powerful about our presence at the finals, and I think what inspired Mickey Rapkin to write about us when he was choosing which a cappella groups to write about in the book Pitch Perfect, is twofold. One, that there were 6 groups at finals. This is back when there were 6 groups at finals. Now there are like 12. A cappella wasn't as big then. And there are 5 all male groups and then us. So it was sort of like, at the time, a cappella was just way more gendered. You didn't see as much mixed groups. We're definitely in the throes of identifying groups by gender, which we're fortunately moving away from now. But so the 12 of us in the group, or the 11 of us, I think, we were the only women in the competition, period. So that was one of the things that was kind of interesting about it. And then we had the situation with the judges, where there were 3 judges at the time. 2 of the 3 placed us first. And the 3rd judge didn't rank us at all in the top 3. So putting us in 4th or maybe 5th place, who knows? And essentially blackballing us intentionally, because even if they had placed us 3rd, we would have won. And so I'm telling the story really weirdly right now. I'm telling it in kind of a weird order, but let me go back to the performance itself. So the performance went really well. We felt really great about it. We walked off stage and we were like, we know that we had worked really hard and we did our best. We had this incredible sisterhood. We were all really close. We felt great about it. And even on stage when they announced the awards, when they announced that we got 2nd, like I remember feeling disappointed. But I was like, it's kind of amazing that we got 2nd our first time at finals. We felt proud of ourselves. There was an audible gasp in the audience when they announced that we were 2nd, though. Like that, it sounds like I'm making that up, but really, truly, it was like a moment of like, what? And then they announced the group they got first, and we hadn't been able to see them. There wasn't space for us to watch in the audience, so we were like, I don't know, they must have been better than us. And I feel like we were kind of chill about it. We were out of dressing room. We were bummed, but we weren't like butthurt. We were like, okay, cool. And then we got our judges sheets back. And that's when we saw what felt like an inequity, in the adjudication system. Like and I've judged a lot of competitions over the years, and I'm so aware of just the bias that's a part of it. I mean, everybody it's all about preference. It's just totally preference. And so, this group, we were just not this judge's preference, but for it to be that, separated, to not even put us in the top 3, just seemed kind of crazy. And then what was disappointing is she had no feedback for us. She just wrote, "Thanks for bowing," this was also when not a lot of groups bowed on stage. So that was like a part, our whole thing that I think was really kind of like, game changing at the time was we were really poised, and we were really, I would say, classy was the word that a lot of people used to describe us. Like we were just buttoned up. We had this kind of androgynous look. We wore pants and buttoned up t-shirts and ties, and it was, and our hair pulled back. Like there was no like brushing your hair out of the face or like, straps falling off the, it was just really, it was really clean, and our choreography was just like robotic almost, but not in a scary way, like in a cool way. and we bowed. We were classy. We were it. And a lot of groups, I think at that time, were just a little more disheveled. And so when you saw the aesthetic of us on stage and our uniform, and it was a uniform, it wasn't like what groups are doing now where it's like a color scheme. It was like black pants and black shirt and the red tie, and I feel like we even had the same shoes. So we were like, oh, that's kind of whack. We didn't get any actual feedback from this judge, and what's up with that? And we were still kind of cool. Like I don't remember being that upset. We went into this Chinese restaurant, and we all of us had family that had come out to New York for it. So we just had we had our own after party. We didn't go to the varsity vocals one. We just like created our own party, and we did our encore with the encore that we had planned to do for our family and friends there. And I just remember it feeling really special and really meaningful, and it was lovely. But then this whole big discussion exploded on RARB, the Recorded Acapella Review Board, which I think is maybe not so much happening anymore. But at the time, it was like so many I mean, it's pre-Facebook, so like the only place you could have heated conversations about acapella related things was on RARB, and people were outraged. They were like, "How did this group place second? That is so messed up. What is even happening?" And it just was probably like somebody from RARB could tell you, but I feel like it went down in history as like one of the longest threads on the forum, like just hundreds of comments. And Amanda Newman, who was Amanda Grish at the time, she was chiming in, advocating for their judging system and handled it really beautifully. And they ended up changing the whole adjudication process so that every competition has 5 judges and the top and bottom scores are thrown out, which is the system that scholastic groups know today and benefit from, so that they can't be blackballed or they can't be favored. And so I think was sort of like the biggest claim to fame from the whole thing, was just that we, kind of changed the trajectory of a cappella competitions moving forward based on what happened to us. And then Mickey Rapkin wanted to write a book about us, and I remember standing outside of the Whole Foods by Berklee College of Music campus having my interview with Mickey Rapkin for the Pitch Perfect book, and then the book came out, and then a couple years later Deke called me and he was like, "Universal's buying the rights to the book. There's probably going to be a movie." And I was like, "Whoa." And so it's, I mean, obviously if you read the book, I would say the book is like 90% accurate. Mickey Rapkin definitely took some liberties, chose to focus on some things that we're sort of bummed that he focused on, and chose to omit some things, but at least it's like, it's our story.
Yeah.
For the most part. The movie is very loosely based on our story.
Yeah.
When people ask what character were you, I say, well, I was the music director, but I never vomited on stage. I was a very diplomatic, calm, cool leader, unlike the protagonist in that film. But that's the Pitch Perfect story. The story of the real Barden Bellas, as we say. The real life Barden Bellas.
What did you get out of that experience beyond like what it meant to other people? Like, I know that there was the gap where you're at Berklee after that, but like in the moment, like what were you feeling and about all of it?
I love that question, Evan, because no one has ever asked me that question. It's always just, it's about the whatever, all the other stuff I just said. But I think ultimately that experience, had I not had that experience, there never would have been WACA. That's one thing that I can definitely like connect the dots with. I mean, we felt a little bit wronged,
right?
And we felt a little bit discriminated against, and we were aware, aware of our gender, and we were aware of being the only ones. It was this like the only ones thing, and so I think that that feeling, has fueled a lot of my work in trying to bring people into the conversation and into the circle, and always wanting to make sure that folks are represented. Folks that are usually not represented are represented. Because I think that experience just really, I was like, what? How are we, how are we the only women on the stage?
Yeah.
And we could, work our butts off. And I mean, it's like that famous quote about, Ginger Rogers did everything Fred Astaire did except backwards and in heels. It felt like that. It felt like I know that we worked harder than the group that won. Like I know it. I don't know. And maybe that's not fair to say because I didn't see their performance, but I know how hard we worked. And I know that like the aesthetic of the time for so many groups was like, and still kind of is with all male groups, is like run on stage and jump up and down and sing, really goofy songs. And the audience just loves you because you are allowed to be goofy and you're allowed to be funny because you're a man. And that's just like it was part of the gendered version of a cappella that we had then. And most female groups were small. And I mean that in like presence, small in presence. It was like dainty movements. And I mean, I think a lot of the choreography in Yeah was what was so groundbreaking, was like it was not dainty, and it was big, and we took up a lot of space, and we shouted, and we had a singer who rapped, and everyone was like, what? No.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it really, just lit something inside of me that maybe went away for a minute, but ultimately came back. Like, it informed a lot of how I wanted to walk in the world as a leader and an educator and a performer myself.
Yeah.
From that experience, that we just felt like, you know, you can feel like a black sheep, or you can feel marginalized, or you can feel like whatever type of way, and you can kind of go into that and be like, oh, woe is me. And we really didn't. We were really like, we were like, no, like that's bullshit. We're gonna do something about it. And we ended up, the following year, we decided not to compete, and we did a tour instead on the East Coast. And we had some similar experiences with being discriminated against. We had one experience where we collaborated with an all male group at Princeton. I don't even remember the name. It doesn't matter, but they had some really, really offensive material in their set. And we walked out. We just we stood up, and we'd already performed. It was in the middle of their set, and we walked out. And there were just moments like that where, and then we went and we sang Imagine in the subway, you know, and that was like it was those types of moments where I realized, like, you don't have to take shit, you know, and you also don't have to turn it into part of who you are. You know, you take that and you give it, you give yourself strength through those experiences. And so I think that's what it did for me, is it just sort of like made me rawr. Like, it brought out my rawr.
Right. I guess I'm curious to ask too, because at this point when you were in Divisi, obviously like that's like the music world and that's the acapella world that you're living through and experiencing. But you also mentioned that you were studying women's and gender studies. Was that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, were those kind of just two separate worlds? Or when you started at Berkeley, were you like, I'm pursuing music? Or did you still kind of have that other drive in your mind as something that you wanted to kind of incorporate with your music?
Yeah, I mean, it always, the gender studies program that I was in, I was just a few short, what's it called, credits shy of a degree. So I don't actually have a degree in gender studies, but I did 3 years in the program, and it really shifted a lot of things for me. I learned a lot, and kind of gave me, I'd always been a little bit of like I've always been a very, socially conscious person. Like, one of the first songs I wrote that I performed at my 8th grade project presentation at the school that I went to, where I did like a whole project on being a singer-songwriter. One of the songs that I wrote was about child abuse, which is like really dark. But I saw this mom hitting her kid on the street, and it just inspired a song. And another one was about like war, and I was always I'm a highly sensitive person. It's just who I am, and so paying attention to injustice in the world has always been a part of my my life, and therefore my artistry, because they are one. I'm a very honest songwriter, and I'm always kind of just putting what I'm feeling into my music. So when I started at Berkeley, I was never super consciously thinking of it at first, but I came to realize quickly that my songwriting style was more unique in that way. A lot of my peers were writing relationship songs and love songs, which I did some too. But I was noticing, my songwriting classes where we'd all share. Like I had a lot of songs that were about, songs with a message. And then it was my last year at Berkeley. I was there for 3 years, and I took a year off. No, I was there for 2 years. How long was I there? I forget. Anyway, I had some transfer credits. I don't remember. But I took a year off in between. I did 2 years at Berkeley, and then I took a year off and moved to Portland, Oregon, and just like tried to like make it as a singer-songwriter. And I didn't know I was going to go back. I just felt like done with it. And then I decided I did want to finish my degree, which I'm so glad I did, because I never would have been able to get the job at OSA if I hadn't gotten the degree. So
Yeah.
that changed the course of my future. But when I went back, I definitely went back with a different awareness. I was like, you know what? Like, who I am is not just the music. It's like, it's also the activist, the artivist is one of the
Yeah.
words that I kind of use to describe my work. And so I ended up getting more involved, not just through songwriting, but more involved in general. My last year, I founded a student group called Musicians Against Sexual Violence. And we were called Massive for short on campus. And I was the chair of the organization. We had a couple faculty advisors with the Office for Cultural Diversity.
Mm-hmm.
And we put on a series of events, one of which was pretty amazing. And one of the things I forget that I did it, but when I think about it, it's one of the things I'm most proud of, which was organizing a Take Back the Night rally
Mm-hmm.
and march in Boston, which I think was the first of its kind. And we involved other schools, and it wasn't huge, but we reached out to a bunch of local authorities, and I had to get all the permits and it was a whole thing. I'm like, oh, I can't believe I organized that. It was just crazy because I was a student, but I was really passionate about that. And Berkeley, it's getting a better maybe, although there was that article in the Boston Globe last year that made it seem like it's not getting better. But
Yeah.
at the time, I knew sexual assault was just rampant on college campuses all over the country. But
Right.
I think Berkeley was particularly problematic and continues to be particularly problematic, in part because of the ratio of male to female students. And when I was there, it was 7-1. And most of the faculty are male. I've been harassed by faculty at Berkeley multiple times. Faculty, hit on female students. It's just a whole dynamic. So I felt particularly tapped into these issues around gender stuff when I was there. I directed the vagina monologues, which is the first time that had taken place on campus, and maybe the only time. And faculty were in the show, and students were in the show,
Wow.
and so I got really, and I was happier. Like the first 2 years at Berkeley, I hadn't been as happy, and I think part of it was I hadn't really realized I need to sort of have this marriage of music and social justice work, if that's
Yeah.
what you want to call it. Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, after you graduated Berkeley, you got that job at Oakland School of the Arts, which is OSA. I think you just started with the choir, and then you started Vocal Rush as like a once a week thing, and then and then kind of took it off from there. And that was in 2011. But like since then, it's insane like what that group has accomplished like under your guidance. Like, but I don't want to like jump ahead of myself too much, but like, can you kind of talk about starting that and like what your initial goal was and how that changed over time?
Yeah. Well, so actually the reason that I started the group, so I got hired mid-year. Let me just say that. So like it was a mid-year teacher coming in, replacing a beloved teacher. I was new, I was young. The school at the time was like 95% African American. Our demographics have shifted since then at OSA. But I had a lot of things not going for me. I was white, I was 25, I was new, I was replacing a director that they loved, and they just did not like me. They did not like me. Some of them did. I had like a few allies, but they kind of made my life hell. This was a 40-person choir. It was the advanced ensemble in the vocal music department that Kava Menzies, my colleague, had founded. And I started in January, but I loved it so much. Like even though the kids were sort of awful to me, I loved them. They made me laugh and they inspired me. And I was just like, these are cool kids. When we start to understand each other a little bit better, this is going to be a dope job. Let me just try and stick it out. And I had an idea. I thought, okay, well, they don't respect me. They don't know what it is that I have to offer. And I'm not Kava. I can't be Kava. I can't like replace her and do the things that she does because she does what she does so well. So I was like, what is it that I have to offer that's unique? And I thought about my a cappella background, and it had been 4 years, I guess, since I had been in Divisi. But I knew that was something I could bring to the table. And I saw that auditions for the Sing Off season
I
Three?
want to say 3. I don't know.
Okay, 3. No,
yeah.
you're probably right. Okay, let's say 3. Sing off. Well, when was Vocal Rush on it? 4? See, I should know that.
4,
Okay.
4, yeah.
it's-
I think,
yeah,
I
okay.
think 4.
So it's the Sing Off season 3. Work it out. Work it out. And it was going to be in June, and it was January. And I said, well, here's a cool thing that I think could entice these kids is an audition for a reality TV show. They'd probably be really into that. That'd be a lot of fun. So I'd made a pitch, and I like showed clips from the Sing Off season 1 and 2. And I think I showed some clips of Divisi, and I was like selling myself. I was like, here's something that I do that's unique that we don't have at this school yet. And I'm going to be starting an after school group. And there was no budget to pay me, you know, so I was just volunteering my time. And out of the 40 kids or so, or actually more, it was probably 60 or so kids, 16 auditioned, which is proof of how much these kids did not like me. Even with an amazing opportunity, they were like, no way. And those, like, I think about those 16 kids all the time, and I'm like, oh, bless these kids. They're just like the kids that took a chance on me. And 10 of them had the skill set and were admitted to the first iteration of Vocal Rush, which at the time was just called Contemporary A Cappella Group. And the kids came up with the name Vocal Rush. And we rehearsed every Thursday after school from March. The auditions were in February. We rehearsed from March until June. And then I coordinated all the drivers and the hotel and stuff when we drove down and we auditioned for the sing-off. And they made it to the final casting round and then ultimately didn't get chosen. And then the following year, the school let me turn it into an elective. So we still met once a week, but we met in the school day as an elective choir. And that was the first year that we competed in the ICHSA and had that kind of crazy underdog win where 5 of our members couldn't go to finals, and I took 7 of the members, and it was only girls. I don't know if you know this story.
No,
Okay, well, really fast. We had 12 kids in the group. We placed second at our semifinal in Oregon. They were also blackballed. There were only 3 judges this time. Varsity Vocals apologized. They're like, sorry, we couldn't get enough judges in this region, even though the policy had changed. But we happened to only have 3 judges. 2 of them placed them first, and 1 of them didn't place them at all. So I was like, what is happening?
They were like, we know Lisa Forkish her group is going to be at this thing, so we're going to get her again.
Hit her again. So they got second, and then we did the wild card. They won the wild card. But we didn't find out until like a few weeks. It was like a month before finals that we got the wild card results. And 5 of the 12 kids had conflicts. They had other things going on that weekend that they couldn't get out of. And it was only 7 girls who were able to go. And I pulled them aside and I was like, up to you. Do you want to do it or you want to not? I was like, I can help you. We can get there. And they're like, let's do it. I did new arrangements. They learned 2 new songs, and then we rearranged one of their songs, so it worked range-wise, and I was teaching them how to sing bass, and we already had a female vocal percussionist, Kiana Fanini, and we went to finals, and there was these amazing groups, and all the groups at this time, this was before high school groups started to get smaller, they were all like 18 people, maybe 20 in some of the groups. So a 7-person group was just really small. And they came on stage, and I just remember thinking, oh, they sound so quiet. You know, it's like not as full of a sound, but they were amazing. Sarah Vela sang Let Us Be Loving. That was another kind of iconic moment. And then they were announcing the awards at the end, and Sarah won Outstanding Soloist. And I just remember standing in the back being like, great, we can go home with an award. You know, this is going to be so amazing, so proud of them. I was like, maybe we'll get 3rd, maybe. And they announced 3rd, and it wasn't us. I was like, okay, maybe 2nd? And they announced 2nd, and it wasn't us. I was like, well, Sarah got her award, and, you know, I'm really proud of them. They worked their butts off. And then they announced 1st, and it was hands down one of the most surreal moments in my life. when they announced first. I just couldn't believe it, and neither could the kids. And we were just this like screaming, crying mess. And they didn't have any other songs; they'd only learned 3. So I just remember rushing the stage from the back because they were like encore, and I was like, they don't know what to do. So I was just like, just sing "Let Us Be Loving" again. And there's this amazing video of the parents who are all in the front row, like jumping up on the stage, and everyone was crying and hugging and. It was this crazy moment. It was the first time they'd competed, and they were only 7. And then the like movie moment was when Amanda Newman came up to me right after that. They were like holding their trophy, and she goes, "I hope this makes up for finals in 2005." And I was like, yes, movie moment. I was like, yes, it does. So it was one of those totally full circle moments. Yeah. And then the following fall, it became a full-time class rehearsing 4 days a week. And we had 50 kids auditioning, and everyone wanted to be in Vocal Rush. They were national champions. And the days of Miss Forkish being a, nobody who they wanted to kick out of the school were long gone.
Wow.
Everybody wanted to be in Vocal Rush. So I actually started the group to gain their rapport. They didn't know that. They thought it was to audition for the sing-off. But it was a sneaky little move on my part, I thought. And I thought it worked really well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we also talked to you when I guess last year, 2 years ago, we did like an ICCA Open thing when Vocal Rush was one of the groups competing
Oh,
there.
yeah.
And it's just like it's clear that like the kids love you. We've like talked to some kids that ended up at Berkeley that like were under you, and like it's the 180 is like so clear, and like you've clearly for lack of a better word just like really empowered like these kids to like do so many things. You've gone to finals so many times, and I would be remiss to not mention that you had a group of high school kids, and yes, it's an arts school, I suppose technically, but it's high school kids writing like an originals album that is like amazing. I was just like,
I love that album.
yeah, in like in
I'm
prep
so
for this,
proud
I
of
was
that.
re-listening to Blind, which I just like is one of my favorite things, and Give Me a Reason is another great one. But like, you've just like you're kind of enabling these kids to like do all this great stuff. Like, what have you been able to kind of learn from that experience, and still now working with those kids and giving them all these great opportunities? Like you mentioned, you were just in London at the London Acapella Festival. Like it literally does not stop. I can keep naming stuff, but I won't. Like, what do you take from them?
Oh my gosh. I learned so much from them. I mean, it's what keeps me coming back is it's just, I mean, it sounds cheesy and it sounds like a line, but like we learn from each other, and we inspire each other, and we love each other. Like we just really all love each other so much. This London trip was such a love fest. Oh my gosh. I just had the best time. Yeah, I mean, I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned a lot about my role in the world, and I think one of the biggest kind of selfish reasons to keep coming back to this job is that they give me hope. So many people are so jaded, and I hear all this nonsense from people, my generation and older, about kids these days, and sure, yeah, like no generation is perfect, and there's maybe they spend too much time on their smartphones. I don't know. So do I.
Right.
Maybe we all do. But I have great faith in the future teaching this generation. And now that this is my 9th year, I've kind of teaching multiple generations. There are now like over 50 alumni of Vocal Rush, and even just at our school, where we have close to 800 students now, in all different artistic disciplines. I'm just constantly in awe and constantly feeling like we're gonna be okay, and that's an amazing part of the job. And I want us to empower youth more and to listen to youth more. It's this weird thing where kids and elders we don't listen to. Whereas in some cultures, elders are the most respected group, and young children and youth are considered more pure. Their spirits are more connected to the higher power, and they're more tapped into so many things that are greater than just the day-to-day physical world that we live in. And it's weird that in our culture we disrespect our kids and we disrespect our elders, and it's one of the things that I love about my job. It's just I'm like, I know the truth. I know the truth. I'm tapped into it.
Yeah, and
they're rad.
Yeah, if I can speak to that too, like I think I don't know. I at least saw you at saw the Vocal Rush at I think there was a Pitch Slapped show that they made it out to, and then also at the ICCA Open Finals, and just like if you have a chance to like watch these kids perform any year that you can, because it's just a serially like fantastic group. It's like I forget what song, but they're like in both times that I'd seen them. It's just like an incredibly powerful performance, and I think kind of what Vocal Rush is known for on the national scale is that almost like everything that's done that you do and have them do is like it has some message or thought behind it, and like I think that a lot of acapella specifically sometimes tries to like shoehorn meaning in when like it's not authentic, but like you see these kids perform and it's like fully from them, and that just makes it all the more powerful. And it's not like you were like, I have this thought, do this, do you want to do this? And they're like, okay. It's like this is something that they're clearly singing about something that they want to be singing about, that they are passionate about. I'm not really going anywhere with this, but that is all to say, just like,
no, I agree with
Vocal Rush.
everything you just said. Yeah, no, it's a pretty amazing legacy. And what's cool is that they're humble. I mean, that's the thing that people maybe don't know. I mean, hopefully you can tell from the way they stand on stage, but they're constantly like, because there's this legacy that came before them. Like this year's group, we've had a lot of conversations about like, what does it mean to own being in Vocal Rush? And they compare themselves to past generations, and they're like, are we as good? And are we really reaching our potential? And they're harshest critics, as we all are, but they're definitely never like, oh, we're amazing because we're in Vocal Rush. Like they're really grounded. And I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, it was finals 2015, where we first incorporated kind of a social justice message into the set. I mean, they'd done some songs that had a little bit of that in it, but that was when they had the Black Lives Matter written on their backs. And since then, I mean, that's kind of changed the trajectory of the group, because the students now, that's a part of the legacy. And so they're really, it's about something that's bigger than them. I think that's part of what keeps them humble, is that we're doing music that tells a story that doesn't have anything to do with them. It's like, it's bigger. Yeah. And so they're always having to stay really grounded.
Yeah.
And it's just for educators out there, it's a tip, if you've got a lot of egos, you got to make it about something bigger than just, relationships and, your own personal identity stuff. But yeah, that's helped keep us on mission. We have a mission, which is cool.
Are there like specific ways that you personally try to empower them, or if it not be empower them, maybe keep them kind of inspired or encouraged if they're not feeling like their songwriting isn't great or that their arrangement isn't the best?
My teaching style is really strength based. So everything, I'm always focusing on their strengths. And that means, it doesn't mean that I'm not telling them when they're singing out of tune, or they're moving in the wrong direction, or they need to show up to class more often, or whatever it may be. I'm honest, but I'm always really focusing on their strengths. And what I've learned in the last couple of years in particular, and kind of figuring out how to cultivate even more connection among them and between me and them, is just how hard these kids are on themselves, and almost every single student that I've taught the past 3 years, when we talk about anxiety, they all say that they struggle with it. So they're, I think mental health issues are on the rise with young people with things like social media, and probably a lot more than that, just other pressures of being in school. And so I'm always really, we do mindfulness meditation every day. That's like one of the things that it's not necessarily like empowering or inspiring, but sort of working on like the holistic part of being a singer is, we just take 5 minutes every day to just like breathe and be and listen to music or focus on our breath, or sometimes it's kind of guided around a specific topic. We do gratitude Fridays where we all write on slips of paper things that we're grateful for, and we put them in a jar and we read them a couple weeks later. And we do, big love, where we just like shout each other out. It's all strength based. It's all like focusing on the things that we have, not the things that we have not, getting rid of fear and limitation and lack and not good enough, and just always, we'll do affirmations. We'll do I am enough, just that simple affirmation that's been a game changer for me as a human being. And I want to impart what I've learned about how to live in this really hard world. I want to impart whatever wisdom I may have gathered with them. And then I do a lot of team building. In the fall, we do a full weekend retreat that's like 2.5 days. I would say focus just as much on interpersonal, healthy group dynamic and communication and respect and love and connection as I do on like dynamics and tuning and all of that. So
yeah, I love that. And I feel like for me personally, it took so long for me to understand that the best part of singing is not the making notes with your mouth at the same time as other people. It's like cool, but like it's that connection that you make with other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that all that is to say, I feel like Vocal Rush as a group has kind of. I was reading Ben Spalding in some Flow Voice article was talking about how it almost feels like Vocal Rush is like transcended being a gendered group, or they're never referred to as co-ed really or mixed, or there's been different makeups of the group over the years. And I think that's something that you've kind of talked about, of hoping that a cappella is aiming towards. And I think that leads well into talking about the WeSing festival and She Sings and everything that's come with that, because it's kind of the mission statement of that whole thing, if you wouldn't mind talking to that.
Yeah, totally. Well, I love that. I didn't know that Ben Spalding said that, but that's cool. And I think it's the future. I think it's what's up, it's just people are people. And well, so She Sings, we had 6 She Sings festivals, and She Sings was founded, like I said, kind of out of a spark that was lit in me and Evan Hollins, who was in Divisi with me and co-founded WACA and She Sings with me back in 2012. Yeah, so that experience at ICCA finals did really inform the founding of WACA and She Sings. And it was one of the things Evan and I had talked about when we were in Divisi was, wouldn't it be great if there were just a festival that just celebrated women's a cappella groups? And the reason that this was like a radical vision is we were everywhere we went. We were the only women's a cappella group, So in 2012, that was big. It was like, okay, we are going to put on an event that only features women. And I remember, just as a quick side note, somebody once asked me, well, what about He Sing? He Sings. And I said, well, that's every other a cappella.
That's just a cappella, yeah.
Which is just, it's shifting, but that's kind of the point is, we wanted to feature female educators and female groups, and we did that, and we had an amazing run. And during that time, things shifted, whether it was because of WACA or not. I think we played a part in it for sure. And just people understanding the importance of representation, that you're putting on a festival and you're going to actually look and say, who's missing? Who do we not have represented? That's such an important question to always be asking. And every once in a while, I'm still seeing lineups that are either all white or all male, or, just without that kind of consideration, or both, sadly. But there's less and less of that. I think there's a little more of a consciousness around the importance of representation. So about a year and a half or 2 years ago, we had a conversation about the work that we were doing with WACA, and we really felt like, I think it was, I don't know what was going on in the community, but other things were going on in the community, conversations about race especially, but also gender identity and other things too. And we were feeling like it's our role, intersectional. What I just saw a meme today that was like, your feminism isn't feminism unless it's intersectional, which is something I firmly believe in.
Yep.
Having, studied, going to school for gender studies, like intersectional feminism has been a part of my my consciousness for a long time. But I am, as a white woman, always having to, kind of check in with that and be like, where am I at with that? How am I doing? Can I do better? And we just felt like, okay, it's our role. If we've never explicitly said we're a feminist organization, but of course we are.
Yeah.
Then we need to be inviting other folks to the table. And She Sings, I'd always been conscious of representation of other marginalized groups, but it wasn't explicitly part of what we were doing. So it was really just making the implicit explicit. And we shifted our mission statement to include LGBTQ plus community and people of color and women. And through the shift in that mission statement, we decided it was time for our festival to have a new name, which is WeSing. So this March will be our very first WeSing vocal festival, which I'm so excited for. This is going to be our best festival yet. Our class lineup was published, I think, a week or two ago. We have some really, really incredible instructors and offerings that are unique and cool, and I think really different from what you will find at other festivals. So that's a reason to come. But also our festival, I think it's really special because it's really community oriented. Like we really, it's not, you're not just like going off to your one class and maybe running into people, you're actually kind of like sharing space with people the whole weekend. And in between classes, we do these little 10-minute breaks called community and connection, where we're literally just like facilitating, almost like team building with our participants and getting everybody, up and connecting with each other. And then our concert has another amazing lineup and is also unique because we've introduced instruments, which is always scandalous. Last year was the first year we had instruments. So this year we have Elephantine, which is a really amazing local band, but they have 3 singers. It features some incredible vocal harmony stuff. And then Ryan Nicole, who's an MC, that's a first. We've never had an MC. Awesome. We're really excited about her. And then HIVE will be there.
Yeah.
And Vocal Rush, who's kind of, Vocal Rush has sort of been a host group from the beginning because, because they're my babies.
Well, that's super exciting to hear about all of that. And I wish we could go. I don't know. We might talk about it after and see if that's a possibility.
I know. You totally
should.
It
might be a thing.
You totally should. It is. It's going to be a really incredible festival. It's March 15th through 17th in Berkeley. And you can go to womensacapella.org/WeSing to read more about all the amazing class offerings. Erin Hackle's going to be there for those of you that can't get enough of, what's her class?
Spectrum singing.
Spectrum singing.
Spectrum singing.
So good. Come for the spectrum singing.
Also, just come for the Bay Area.
Yeah, come for the Bay Area. If you want some temperate weather, in March, sometimes we get, sometimes it gets as warm as like 70 degrees. So
yeah.
Thinking
about it.
I know she has a question. I know that we're also running out of time for you, but I just wanted to ask if you wanted to include anything about just the state of She Sings, or not. Like that's up to you. But just
I do. Can we have a few more minutes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We're
totally up
here.
to you.
Yeah.
Okay, Patrick. Oh, you're right there. Would you put the salmon in too? Do you know how to do it?
I want this in the podcast.
Patrick, put the salmon in. The vegetables are cooking and the salmon. So just there, the lime is there. would you just squirt it with lime and then add some cumin and salt and pepper? This is my salmon recipe for your podcast. And make sure you wash the salmon and then put it in the tinfoil and then put it in the oven for 20 minutes.
This is the greatest moment of our podcast to this point.
What? Wash it, put it in the tinfoil, put a little bit of olive oil down so the skin doesn't stick. Sprinkle the lime juice. The lime is out. I already washed it. Okay. We're in business. All right. What else do you want to know? The dinner's in the oven. Husband's covering it. Right. WACA. Yeah, WACA. Okay. So after about 7 years of WACA doing the work that we've been doing and hosting our festival and producing our compilation album, we are going to be closing our doors this March post-festival, which is something that was announced via social media already and is absolutely bittersweet. It was a lot of kind of soul searching and conversations with board and staff, and just a process before we came to that decision. But ultimately, it's a lot of work to run a nonprofit, and the sustainability piece, just getting sort of, I think we just imagined it would get easier over time, and it just hasn't. And all of us, I won't speak for others. I'll just speak for myself as co-founder and executive director. I feel really confident that I can do just as much of the work, if not more, not burdened by the sort of bureaucracy of running a nonprofit and some of the things that go with it that are more of like a pain in my side, as opposed to just the work, doing the work. And so an exciting thing that we haven't officially announced, but maybe we'll have officially announced by the time this podcast airs, is that HIVE is going to be presenting WeSing 2020, which we're really excited about. All of us have been involved with the festival in various capacities over the years. We're all educators, so we feel like it's a really logical next step, and we'll see how that goes. And maybe it'll be something we'll continue to do. But the festival is something I really want to continue doing, even if it's maybe pared down a little bit. It means a lot to me, and I know it's an important event for a lot of people. And I'm going to keep, I feel like as soon as I'm not the executive director of a nonprofit anymore, like I have so much newfound sort of mental energy and time to be just doing more of this stuff through my teaching and my arranging. And I'm starting a community choir, the WeSing choir, that is infusing a lot of this mission. I have 31 singers, and we're going to be doing music for social change and performing in the Bay Area. And I feel like there's just so much more work to be done that I'm now freed up to kind of do on my own.
Right.
And I think other WACA staff members will be as well. It's like WACA won't exist anymore, but we are all still who we are. None of us are going into a different profession or anything. So in a way, I really think that not much is going to change. Maybe not as much as people expect, especially if we keep producing our festival. So it's definitely bittersweet, and it's been an amazing run. And I'm so grateful. I just want to, say to the listeners, to everyone who has been a member or, attended a festival or supported us in any way, we're just so grateful for the community that we've built over these years, and we'll be, definitely continuing to connect.
Yeah. Well, I know we both applaud you for the work that you've done with WACA over the past few years. Even just in the last 3 years, I've noticed that it's just the people have noticed it a lot more and noticed the work that you're doing. And you kind of even mentioned it's built this community. So even though WACA won't be physically existing in this world, you've set up all these incredible connections between people, which I think is a lasting impact. So props to you for kind of spearheading that.
Thanks. Yeah, that feels good. That part,
Yeah. So you did mention Hive. So I know we're over an hour and we could probably talk to you for another full hour, but I did at least want to touch on obviously Hive and along with Hive your own personal work. So you're in Hive. You started that 2 years ago now, a year ago now,
A year and a half.
a year and a half ago. Okay, so that's one thing that you're doing, and you're also obviously have your Patreon, have your own personal music going. So there's a ton of stuff you're doing on top of this grandiose sort of stuff you're doing at OSA and all of these other kind of things. So what are kind of the creative goals, I guess, for Hive and your personal music?
For Hive, we're writing more original music. So one of our goals for this year or maybe next year at latest is to do an originals album. We're really inspired by your latest album. We love it. We all love it. We're big fans. And that had been a goal of the group from the beginning, sort of like starting with covers as not placeholders really, but just to kind of get things going. We've got maybe 6 or 7 originals at this point, and we're just building that up. And our covers, if you haven't noticed, are we're very intentionally covering, kind of like Vocal Rush, just lesser known artists and artists that we really want to lift up and get heard. And then we're trying to get into, like, it's been so fun to perform at a cappella festivals and events like that. We love it, and it's like family. But we also have some goals outside of just being an a cappella group, doing other types of performances for other music festivals that are not a cappella specific, and also kind of getting into some of the social justice conference circuit, where we've started to like kind of submit our stuff to some women's events, and a lot of our repertoire and a lot of our mission, aligning with work that is being done in the nonprofit sector, or just in the activism world. We just feel like we can bring our music to those spaces. And then we all really love teaching. And so we're talking about ways that we can grow that. One idea is doing like a summer camp, like for adults, which is an idea that I got from Postier. They do that in Denmark. And I had the privilege of being an attendee a few years ago. It was just so fun. It was just a really cool week of like working with all of them. And, they all have their various areas of expertise. So we've talked about doing that.
That's cool.
And then now, WeSing 2020 is on the radar. So that'll be a big project, putting together that festival and seeing what that looks like. So yeah, we're just really we sort of took a little detour doing the open, like distracted us from our mission for a little bit. It was a reminder of like, oh right, when you compete, like you work on 3 songs for like a really long time, and you're like, so it was a lovely experience, but we're grateful to be kind of back on mission again. And yeah, Patreon has been really great for me. I kind of stopped writing songs when I started teaching at OSA. I was full time teaching for several, for I guess 5 or 6 years before I cut back. It was just like completely all consuming. I managed to put out an album in my second year. I still don't know how I did that.
I was wondering how you did that.
I put out Bridges, which is my kind of jazz album, in 2012, and I'm like, I don't know how I did that while full-time teaching, but I mostly had sort of stopped writing songs. And so Patreon for me is a way to connect more deeply with people that enjoy my music and support me as an artist or just as a human. But it's also a way for me to stay meeting my goals around songwriting. So last year I set a goal to write a new original song every month. Yeah. And I knew as soon as I told my patrons I was going to do that, it was like, I had to do it. And it was part of why I did it, just to like have a system for accountability. So I wrote 12 new songs last year, and I'm planning to continue doing the same thing this year, a new song every month. And I'm also about to do the Rhiannon. I'm not sure if folks are familiar with Rhiannon. She's an amazing singer and improviser and master teacher. She sang in Voicestra, which is Bobby McFerrin's a cappella group. She's legendary. She's amazing. Look up Rhiannon. But she has a year-long mastery level improvisation program of study that I'm participating in this year. So
very cool.
I'm just tapping it. I'm focusing on my own artistry again. Love Warrior was kind of the re-entry. I did that album 2016 into 2017 and released it almost 2 years ago now. And it felt like, okay, right. My own artistry, my own songwriting. And I don't know what's next. I've thought about, one of my goals is to write a musical. So that's something I'm thinking about. I've thought about, I don't know. I have a lot of things that I want to do, and where's the time? But I'm also now now that I'm part-time at OSA, I'm doing a ton more arrangement commissions, which is really fun. So I just feel like I have this really great balance between my my educator hat and my arranger songwriter hat, and then performing through HIVE, and also getting back into some of my own performing. So this is the first time you're catching me at a good moment in my life where I feel like I'm finally striking the balance that I want with all the various disciplines that I work in. Because they all inspire the other. They all feed off of each other. And if I'm just performing or just teaching, I don't feel whole. Or if I'm just arranging is lonely. That's the thing that I've noticed. I'm like, sometimes when I have too many arrangement commissions, I start to get really lonely, but that's what you, right? I know. It's just like solo work. So that's what's up with me and with HIVE and my own artistry. It feels like exciting stuff on the rise, I think.
That's amazing.
Very cool.
Yeah. As you were talking about that, I was like, we could talk about that. We could talk about that. But we're I think this might be one of our longer episodes to exist. But you're amazing. You're doing so many things. I think to wrap it up, we'll ask the couple questions that we like to ask. The first one being, what right now is exciting you in the vocal music space, and what are you excited to see more of happen in the future?
I think one of the things that I think is exciting me most about what's going on in the vocal music world is that I think, due to the state of the larger world that we're living in now, there's more and more of an awareness about our role as artists being bigger than just being artists. Nina Simone has a quote about, the artist's duty is to reflect the times. And I do feel like in the vocal music world, like when I was young, that was never really a thing. The choral pieces that my director programmed for us, or the even the kind of more cutting edge work that I did with this summer choral academy, where we did like Eric Whitacre. It's like none of it was. There wasn't that awareness of like, we are artists reflecting the times, because you're doing other people's music, and it's choral music, and a lot of it's really old, and what does it even matter? And we're just singing, and people are going to be moved because people are moved when people sing in harmony, no matter what,
right.
And now I feel like there's a little more of like, no, there are stories to be told. There's more original music in the vocal music world, which is really, really exciting to see. There's just a deeper awareness of it being bigger than just us and bigger than just singing in harmony, whether that be through the greater focused on the connection piece among singers and also between singers and their audience, as opposed to just like sort of perfection over authenticity, which is what I remember experiencing as a young person, that it was all about, your hands were straight at your side and the notes were just right. And I don't remember my teachers talking to me. My private teachers did, but my choir teachers, I don't remember hearing a lot about like connection to the lyric and, and just really tapping into serving the music and what does that even mean? I feel like there's more of a consciousness about all of that, which feels exciting and like it's about time, yes, okay, we're all coming together on that. So that really excites me, and I want to see more one thing I want to see more of is thoughtfulness in repertoire selection from a cappella groups that are covering music. It's like an area that I feel pretty consistently disappointed.
Yeah.
Not like everyone's disappointing me, but like every show I go to or every competition, like there's something that disappoints me. Like, oh, why did they choose that song?
Yeah.
You know, and not in a judgmental way, but more just for two reasons. One, because sometimes we're seeing groups singing songs that they can't sing authentically, and it just is like hard to watch. And it's, you know, I see a lot of high school groups doing songs about like sex, and I'm just like, yeah, I know that they're having sex. I'm not naive, but like it's uncomfortable to watch. It's too, maybe it's not just that it's about sex. That makes me sound like a prude, but that it's just mature sexual and relationship content for high school groups.
Sure.
And most of it super heteronormative, you know, and then like dividing the group up by gender in a way that, you know, just those types of things are they're just tired, you know, it's tired. We're done with that. And then also like a thoughtfulness about like, is this song serving anyone, us or the audience? And if the answer is neither, then don't do it, you know? So just thoughtfulness about repertoire selection, I think especially for scholastic groups.
Yeah.
That's something I'd love to see more of. More conversations about it too. You know, like, do you listen to the lyrics of the song before you decide to arrange it? And do you talk about what they mean before you perform it? Actually, at Cappella, I asked that question, like, how many of you talk about what the song's about before you perform it? And so few hands went up. I was shocked. I was like, oh, we don't all do that? And again, it's absolutely, you know, no judgment, but, you know, I think it's something that could really help elevate the music.
Right. I agree with that fully. And then just the last question, just to wrap things up, is what is on the plate for you? We know there's obviously a lot of things you're working on, but what's the next sort of thing you're looking to do?
Well, the next big thing it's not something I'm looking to do. It's already happening, but WeSing is the next big thing.
Yeah.
I mean, WeSing is just like, a big event coming up. Well, I don't really say this often because it feels like a dorky thing, and it also feels like I'm gonna say it and then it's gonna happen like 5 years from now.
Yeah.
But I have an idea for a book that I want to write. Actually, I have 2 ideas for books that I want to write. So
Awesome.
I've been saying I'm going to write a book. And actually last year, it was one of my 2018 goals was to write the book. And I quickly realized that's not a thing you do in a year when you do all the other things that I do. But the book is going to be called Lead with Love, which is the title of one of my songs.
Cool.
And I think I won't say anything more about it because it might change over time. But yeah, I'm excited to do some writing and share some of my stuff in a new format.
That's amazing. And I mean, I'll say even if it comes out in 5 years, that's still an impressive thing to do. Like, I think we've spoken it into existence on this.
Yes, I know. And I'll be proud. No, it might be 10 years. I'll be proud no matter what. Writing a book feels like a big thing. So
yeah, I can't even imagine doing it myself. Well, thank you so much for lending so much of your time to us. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. We could just let you go and it would be fine to just have like 3 hours, but obviously we can't do that for your sake.
No one wants
listeners.
to listen to 3 hours.
And your salmon
I
is
think
waiting.
there might be some people, but anyway, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course, and we hope that you join us next week for a new episode of Head Voice.
In my bones, in my blood, in my gut, I know I can heal this.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Head Voice. You are now listening to Lisa's song Love Warrior off of her EP Love Warrior. I was actually going to ask Lisa to explain what it means to her to be a love warrior at the end of this episode, but it's like just hearing her talk, like you get it. Like you don't need to explain it. Like you understand why she is that and why she uses that a lot.
Absolutely. Every time I feel like every time I talk to Lisa, after I have a conversation with her, I just rethink life. And I'm like, what am I doing? What's the meaning? Like she's just doing it right. And she's just so caring, and everything she does is great.
She taught class, the capstone class at Boss, that was changing ourselves in the world through acapella. That was just like such an eye-opening thing, and we like sang these old songs and like just connected, and just like I feel like the way that she thinks about acapella is not only so unique, but it's just influenced the way that acapella is and the way that we think about it in a way that maybe we don't all realize, but I think it's just like her influence, her mind is
Oh, absolutely. Also, the Divisi story is crazy, and I've never heard of also her vocalist story. She's just full of so many experiences.
Yeah, she's done so much. Anyway, it was such a joy to talk to her, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. It was a little long, but I think it was worth it. Hopefully you agree if you're still listening to this. We have another great guest next week who is
Katie Daly
from Citizen Queen, and we already did the interview, and she is lovely. And I think you're really going to like that one, so make sure you subscribe on all the podcasts and do the thing and the LinkedIn and all that stuff. But generally, giving us reviews and follows always helps. But I won't bore you with that. Thank you for listening. I won't take up much more of your time because you gave us a lot already. And I feel inspired to go do some good in the world, make some songs that make a difference. And I'm gonna go change the world.
You go.
I'm a love warrior.
Hype it up. Hype, hype, hype. Here we go now. Take it back now, y'all. One hype this time. Hype. One hype this time. Hype. Hype to the hive.
Hype.
Hype to the hive.
Hype.
What?